Hi, my name is Andrew Kaip, and good afternoon. And I am a member of the Red Cloud security team. On behalf of the Red Cloud, I would like to thank management of the 12 companies presenting here today and the plus 250 participants that have already signed up so far for what we expect to be a very timely update from a number of the silver producers and explorers and the prospects of new discoveries within the silver space. A week ago, we here at Red Cloud highlighted in our H2 update that can be found on our website the confluence of factors that, in our view, had the potential to drive silver to outperform gold. With gold moving above $1,900 and now forecasts of $2,300 per ounce beginning to emerge, we expect silver to regain its luster as a derivative of gold and a safe haven against global macro and financial uncertainty. A week ago, silver was trading at a 95-to-1 ratio with gold. Today, the surge in silver price over the last week has moved the gold to silver ratio to the 80-to-1 range, more in line with the average since the fall of 2014, when the price of silver decoupled from gold owing to increased concerns about global growth at the time and silver's association with the base metal complex. But we think there's more life in the price of silver. Why? Silver production, first of all, peaked in 2015, 2016, and has declined fairly significantly year over year since then. The global march towards increased connectivity, green energy, and eco-friendly transportation have added new sources of demand for silver. These fundamentals alone support increasing exposure to silver and silver equities. But there's an even more prescient investment thesis developing for silver. In our view, COVID-19 related supply disruptions in South America and Mexico, where the bulk of silver is produced, are likely to outstrip declining demand related to the ongoing near-term contraction in industrial demand. Add in healthy investment demand since the end of March, and we see a silver bull market on the horizon. And I would almost argue that it's here raging in front of us today. Now, a little bit about Red Cloud. We continue to build Red Cloud into what we believe is a new vision for boutique brokerage firms. We joined the IROC community earlier this year, made recent hires in key service areas of marketing and media, added web design, build, and maintenance services to our platform. We continue to expand our distribution, enhance our research capabilities, and grow our banking activity. Many of our service areas, such as our unique retail and high net worth distribution, videographic web development services, and social media services, are not offered by traditional brokerages. Moreover, we believe individual IR type service firms offering individual services cannot create the magical synergies that we are about to provide by combining onto a single service platform. This is our first of many to come in the future, first virtual conference, and we believe that it's going to be a value add, not only for these companies and investors, but also for the Red Cloud platform. Now some housekeeping items. We have set up a structured 30-minute network session to end our conference. We'll start at 4:45 Eastern Time or 1:45 Pacific Time. You'll be randomly put into groups of 4 every 5 minutes for a total of around 30 minutes. Think of it like a virtual speed dating. I should mention that you don't have to commit to the full 30-minute session to give our networking session a chance. For any technical difficulties as we navigate through this new online space, please utilize the live support hub located on the top right corner of your dashboard. With the housekeeping out of the way, I would like to introduce Michael Steinmann, President and CEO of Pan American Silver. Half a dozen years ago, Michael gave a presentation on the history of silver at a PDAC conference that I moderated. In my view, it was one of the most insightful looks at the importance of silver that is just as salient today as it was 4,000 years ago. And some of the challenges facing silver miners on the production front are also a topic of discussion in Michael's presentation. Michael has graciously agreed to give an updated version of this presentation today, and I think it's even more pertinent in today's world than it was 6 years ago. Today, to start, we'll handle some of the disclosures, and then we'll get right to Michael. For Red Cloud Securities, I'd like to start off with a disclaimer that will apply to all the presentations here today. This webinar is for information purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation to purchase or sell securities or a recommendation to buy or sell securities. And we note that this call does not take into account the particular situation or needs of individual investors. Participants should rely on their own investigations and seek their own professional advice before investing. Please see our disclosure, our most recent research on those companies presenting that Red Cloud Securities actively publishes research on, located on our website for company-specific disclosures. With that out of the way, Michael, I'm going to hand it over to you, and thank you very much for leading off this webinar.
Thank you, Andrew. Pleasure to be here, and good morning or afternoon wherever you're located in the world. It's an absolute pleasure to give you this presentation. As Andrew said, I'm the CEO and president of Pan American Silver. So, as you probably know, the company, 26-year history of silver production in the Americas, with 10 large operations that we have across from Patagonia to Mexico. We are the second largest silver producer in the world, so there's a long history of silver production, as Andrew alluded to. But today I really want to talk about a different topic. I don't want to talk about Pan American, but I want to really talk and dive a little bit deeper into silver production historically and what it did to cultures and societies throughout thousands of years. So, absolute pleasure to be here and talk about the long history of silver as a monetary asset. That's really what I want to do today. Silver is being mined for thousands of years and financed the rise of important ancient and modern cultures, and we'll see much more details later on. There's a lot to cover in 30 minutes, so I won't be able to go into all the details. I would love maybe once when I retired, I will have time to dive much deeper in all these topics. And as you know, or people that know me, I'm not a historian, I'm a geologist. So I included a few references on deposit types as well, but please keep in mind that I'm not a historian. So obviously there would be much more details to dive in if you have time to. Very interesting topic. So let's just get started, going all the way back to Anatolia, about 3,000 years BC, where we saw actually already silver used in Egyptian tombs. So we see silver there, silver ornaments and vases found in Troy. So I have a few pictures there actually of silver trumpets from Tutankhamun's tomb. So very, very interesting that silver has been used that long ago, because most of you probably know that native silver is very hard to find. That's very difficult if you want to buy a silver nugget, very hard to find. So it actually has to be smelted. So you need a refining and smelting process to actually do that. We know, and I put it there, that in the Bronze Age, copper smelting was already used. So obviously the technologies were available to produce actually larger quantities of silver, mostly in Armenia and Anatolia, and was used for trading. What's interesting though, it has not really been used at that time as money. You see the second bullet point there where I mentioned the silver shekel, which I looked at it quickly and I found different weights. It was used as kind of as a form of payment in Mesopotamia about 2500 BC, but it was not a coin. It was a weight in that. In this case, 8.3 grams of silver. I found actually a few different results for different locations, but it was just a weight use, but kind of a start of trying to use silver and create a monetary system. Very early start, so very interesting. You can imagine that mining was very complicated at that time. Of course, we are far away, thousands of years away from explosives, so mostly like stone tools and antlers and used to mine and fire setting to break the rock and very hard work to produce that first silver. Moving on to Greece, where really a large part or bigger amounts of silver have been mined. We're talking about Laurion or Laurium district, about 65 kilometers southeast of Athens, where mining started about 800 years BC, so long way back, with a long production, about 700 years of production, and a district that produced somewhere between 200 to 250 million ounces of silver. So unbelievable if you think about, again, the tools and methodologies that were available to dig over 1,000 old shafts, some over 100 meters deep. A lot of underground workings. You can imagine that dewatering and ventilation was not really available yet, and unfortunately that used mostly slave labor, and you see the terrible numbers of thousands and tens of thousands of slaves that did that mining for Greece. But a lot of silver production there for sure, and absolutely changed the way that Greece was able to grow. And I'll have here a slide on the economic impact. My apologies there, I have a little mix up and I start looking at the first coins, because I really want to talk here with Greece starting really one of the first silver coins and use it as a monetary system. But some of the first coin you see there in the center of my picture with the line on it is actually an electrum coin from Bolivia. That is, I think, is probably regarded as one of the first coins in the world, kind of a trial system to build a monetary or some silver-based monetary system, or in that case, an electrum-based, which is a mix of silver and gold for people that are not familiar with electrum. But let's now dive in onto Greece. The first coins I see there with the owl on it, minted or struck about 600 years BC, and that silver mining, as I said, all the silver ounces mined in that district close to Athens, really allowed the rise of Greece as a very important culture, obviously, as we know historically. Several reasons for that. First of all, you had money available. You could do actually transactions. It's not just a barter system as it was before, where you couldn't really make big transaction or kind of transactions far away from the place you live, where before it was probably mostly land and goods, livestock, grain, etc. that was bartered. But once you had coins available, it was actually possible to finance an army, to pay soldiers on a weekly or monthly basis, so that they actually stay with the army and don't leave in the midst of a battle. And it allowed to finance the navy for Greece, over 200 ships. It financed Alexander the Great's conquest. And it's really interesting that because of the armies and the conquest, this coins got widely distributed, so soldiers could get paid, and they spent the money. And you see there, I have it on the last point, Greek silver coins found later on in India and all the way to Afghanistan as well, that have been distributed by these conquests, and helped obviously financing further cultures in other places as well. So very large impact from silver mining. And sorry, I probably have to go back there. It actually was also the end of or start silver mining, or the lack of silver mining actually. Also started the downfall of the Greek culture, when actually the silver mines close to Athens got blocked by the Spartans' armies, and access to new silver and access to new silver coin, and the only money really available, stopped, and put a lot of pressure on the Greek culture. Moving on to the Roman empires, and I realized that I'm doing big jumps here, but I just really wanted to show how mining and silver mining, and especially finance, and how to rise the rise of these important cultures. Very interesting that during the Roman Empire, really all the silver and gold mines known in the known world there belong to Rome. As a very active mining for hundreds of years, and a lot of silver production. You see there, it was believed that Rome was holding about 320 million ounces of silver to base their monetary system, and they actually developed the first banking system, and really silver-based financial system. I put it there in bold letters. Actually, due to lack of control mechanism, the banking system needed a governmental bailout, 33 AD. So very interesting that, you know, some history obviously repeats itself. But for sure, a different way of mining already. I'm sure you're all aware of very interesting and very advanced engineering methods that the Romans developed for water transport, and in this case, obviously for ventilation and dewatering as well. So a lot of engineering that started flowing into mining, and making mining, silver mining especially, a bit easier and obviously much more productive. After the fall of Rome, silver mining in Europe really kind of disappeared, or any kind of mining. People start moving back to countryside, population declined, and the usage of coins decreased strongly. And you see there, I mean, a lot of copper coins used for small transactions, but gold and silver coins was really just available for kings and thieves, because there was a lot of looting going on, and that you know, a lot of gold and silver coins were stolen, and wealth accumulated that way as well. So not a lot happening there, and really have to actually wait quite a while and see if we saw a revival of European silver production and mining production, probably starting somewhere in Germany at a site called Rummelsburg, but very long production. You see, it started at 968 and lasted until 1988. Very interesting ZX deposit that has been mined there. And what I found really interesting, if you look at the grades, yes, there's a high zinc grade, but still, I found for you know, very low productive underground mine, very low silver grades actually, but it looks like they could make it work. They built a lot of underground workings and tunnels. Interesting if you see that the drainage tunnels, to build the drainage tunnels, the first one took 200 years to finalize, and 100 years for the next one. So very slow advances, and I was really actually surprised when I saw the 140 gram silver grade that was mined at that time. But really, that's revival of the European silver mining. The next asset in medieval silver mining in Freiburg, Saxony, Germany, a really interesting story there, because what we have there, and again, you know, the production number are estimates, but up to 300 million ounces of silver produced. But what really is new here is that kind of a mining claim got invented, as it was called the Cooks, and you could actually sell that or hold it or give out shares on it. So very similar system that we have now in the world. The only big difference you see there in the middle, the owner of the CUCs actually was not only entitled for profits, but actually had to share working capital as well. Well, a bit similar than shareholders that finance that today as well. There was obviously absolutely no oversight of that system. You can imagine what started to happen here when prices rise, and you actually had first stockbrokers and investors misleading, or stockbrokers in misleading investors, people showing samples from different mines, convincing people to invest in their deposits. I was reading that only about an estimate of 10 to 15% of the mines actually even went into production. Anything else never existed. And the second last point, really interesting as well, because we see history repeating, but the Duke of Saxony increased royalties and had the right to purchase all silver at a discount. So there was definitely a control on the selling of the silver. But yeah, very interesting that the birthplace, I think, of kind of the mining claims and the way to share that with investors, although due to the lack of any oversight came with quite some problems. But later on we obviously dealt with that and have the system that we use today that provides oversight and security for investors. So going to a bit more on in time, thereafter there's a very large amounts have been mined in Germany, Eastern and Northern Europe. I put the few famous one up, the really famous one, Joachimsthal, which made a really famous coin, the Joachimsthaler, production of about 100 million ounces. But I really would like you to focus on the last one, which is Kongsberg in Norway, which is a really impressive deposit. First of all, it was in production for over 330 years. Narrow veins, not a lot of production in that long time, really kind of a small mine. But what really was impressive, and the mine was owned by the government, actually by the king the whole time of Norway. But there was a whole system in place already with advanced labor law, sick leave, healthcare, and due to that and much better pay, that mine was able to attract a lot of German engineers and miners. So a much more successful mine, and probably one of the birthplace of the more modern view that actually providing safe and productive workplace and good working conditions and living conditions is not only improving everybody's life, but also improves the economy of your deposit. And for sure, a very important lesson that was learned there a few hundred years ago. There were a lot of positive and some negative impacts, as you can imagine, from silver mining. Of course, it financed, like with Greece and Rome. In Europe, a lot of big cathedrals, castles, channels, a lot of infrastructure building. So very important for the advances in Europe, big advances in engineering. I'll talk a bit about metallurgy later on. Start of first university, saw a lot of influx of money, advances on infrastructure. On the other side, the very bad parts, still slavery used. I think Norway really was there on the right track, but it took a while for anybody else to change that. We started seeing large trading deficits just because some countries start producing a lot of coins, printing money kind of in silver coins because they had the silver available, which obviously caused inflation in some places as well. So again, history repeats itself today for very similar reasons, just not by printing money. And unfortunately, in still many places, very unthinkable working conditions in some mines, which took quite a while to change. So let's go to the New World, which was a big change in silver production, and basically was the end of really the European mining and silver production when the silver was discovered, or actually, first of all, Cortes and Pizarro conquered Mexico and Peru, and then discovered all that silver and gold, but mostly silver. That really changed everything, together with a big advance in the metallurgy, which is the patio process. So use of mercury amalgamation, recovery of silver in a much easier and faster way. So you see there the big districts in Mexico: Tasco, Guanajuato, Fresnillo, Pachuca. A lot of silver production there for the Spanish crown, and a lot of the mines there and in the districts still under production and exploration by quite a few Canadian companies, some Vancouver juniors as well. So very important district. Obviously, Mexico, #1 silver producing country, followed by Peru today still, and that's kind of the beginning of that history. I have a map there. You see a few of the mines, very dense distribution of silver mine in the Mexican silver belt. Mostly actually in the past from low sulfidation epithermal veins, so high-grade veins, and later on mantos, skarn, stockworks. You maybe heard we made a Pan American big discovery where we at La Colorada actually mining low sulfidation epithermal veins and deeper down actually discovered a very, very large skarn deposit that is in our exploration phase right now. So the geological model here fits to quite a few deposits in Mexico. Really interesting, if you look at Mexico, produced historically about 10 billion ounces of silver and a lot of gold, 75 million ounces of gold, but the silver production is so stunning that we have seen in Mexico over the past. A very, very large part of the silver that mostly was sent back to Europe and to Spain, and actually started creating a lot of financial troubles later on for Spain as well, because as I mentioned, it introduced a lot of inflation. A lot of inflation got exported to Germany and France at that time, as Spain had a lot of money and started purchasing a lot of things they did not produce or stopped producing in Spain, and start importing that from neighboring countries in Europe, paying with silver coins and actually exporting some of their inflation to surrounding countries. The next big district discovered obviously at very similar times was Peru, with a lot of silver production. Starting a lot in central Peru, in the region of Cerro Pasco, Morococha, Huancavelica districts. Actually, Morococha and Huaron are two mines in Pan America's portfolio, and they're in production. These districts are huge districts, very deep-seated, large veins, hundreds of veins, and they have been in production for a really, really long time. So a lot of silver production coming from Peru. What's really interesting, the second last bullet point there, the Santa Barbara and Huancavelica did not produce any silver. It's a mercury mine, but it produced actually most of the mercury that was used for the mercury amalgamation in Bolivia, which obviously is the third large district I want to talk about. So really the big advantage of Spain was mercury available at the beginning from Almaden, the big mercury mine that is not in production anymore now in Spain. So that mercury used at the beginning and used in Mexico, but then they found a local mercury mine in Peru, and that was then used in not only in Peruvian production but also in Bolivian production. So very important for that story. And that brings us to Peru. It brings us to brings us to Bolivia. Very important silver producer, mostly coming from Cerro Rico. I don't know for one of you that have been in Potosi, the really iconic mountain. Actually, it's on the coat of arms of Bolivia, very iconic and protected mountain. I have a picture on the next slide, and really helped or provided the silver, a large part of the silver production for Bolivia. It is actually a tin deposit with silver deeper down, and is still one of the largest disseminated silver deposits in the world. I think the estimate is somewhere around 600 million ounces there. That would require obviously an open pit mine, which is not possible. As I said, the mountain Cerro Rico is under protection, and you cannot alter the surface of the mountain. So over 2 billion ounces of production in Bolivia in the past, and again, a lot of slave labor there, a lot of slave labor from Africa as well. That mined that silver for the Spanish crown, and produced had that from 1493 to 1700, about 63% of the world's silver. Very interesting that Potosi is still quite an important town in Bolivia, but around 1672 was one of the largest and wealthiest towns in the world. You see there are a lot of churches, dance halls, and everything else that comes with a very big town. So really, really important for Bolivia, all fueled by silver mining. And there you see Cerro Rico on the right on a photograph. It's very interesting when you see that only Mexico and the US actually historically produced more silver than Bolivia. So very, very interesting fact, and very impressive. You can go and visit some of the workings and mines there if you visit Potosi in Bolivia. With that, let's talk about the US, which started producing more and more in the last 200 years. Obviously became a very important silver producer. Mexico already during the Mexican Revolution, silver production declined quite strongly, all the way down to about 28 million ounces per year. At the same time, we have the really big districts in the US like Comstock, Butte, Bingham, Tintic District, all producing huge amount of silver. You see there in bold letters. And obviously the Silver Valley District in Coeur d'Alene, which produced about 1.1 billion ounces of silver in veins. So the US taking slowly over, and I think I have a slide. It's a little bit difficult to read here. I got that from a very old report. But you see the change in the pie graphs from left to right. On the left side, really South America and some European production being dominant somewhere in the 1490s to 1600s. And then you see how South America is getting less important, and North America start coming in the last, especially 200 years, taking over. And then really the earlier, like 1910, 20, 30s, North America really producing a lot of silver. As I said, Mexico, not really important anymore due to the Mexican Revolution, and South America producing less there as well. So the US really taking over, and silver production increasing very strongly as well. And I think you can see that on this slide, how silver production, this is million ounces worldwide from 1800 to 1920. And you see really how strongly that increased, and by the decade from 1911 to 1920, and grew to close to 200 million ounces of silver for the world. If we fast forward to today, as you all know, probably we're talking about just shy of 1 billion ounce a year silver market. Scrap are important in there. If you look at the mine production, roughly about 800 million ounces of worldwide mine production, declining. Was already declining before COVID, and Andrew made that statement absolutely right. Has a lot of pressure, especially in Latin America and Mexico, on the silver producers right now, and so that will further decline. But for sure, there's this interesting fact now that we have declining mine production worldwide, and of course increasing silver demand, especially on the industrial side for clean energy production. electronics, etc., etc. And of course, in times like this, increased demand on the investment side as well. When we look where the silver comes from now, fast forward to today, North America and South America is still very important together, producing probably about 60–70% of the world's silver, and the rest comes from other mines all over the world. So really, the most important silver mines are in the Cordillera, somewhere between Chile and Alaska. That's where the silver deposits are mostly located. And if you are a silver miner like Pan American, that's why your assets are located in that geography. Looking at silver production as a byproduct from different metals, as I said from the beginning on, silver is not really found by itself. Silver is always or mostly occurring with other metals, and you see it there. Even in primary silver mines, which is the dark blue line, which is actually declining, and it's less than 30% of the silver production that comes from primary silver mines. Even in those mines, silver comes together with gold or with base metals, depending on the geology. But it's an important byproduct for lead and zinc mines, which is actually increasing, and then copper and gold. And as you can imagine, those lines go up and down depending on the primary metal that is mined in that mine, the primary metal price. So when we see higher base metal prices, of course, production will increase in lead, zinc, and copper, and automatically that will produce more silver from those mines. Right now, we will obviously see more silver coming as a byproduct from gold mines. And of course, with today's silver price, primary silver mines I would expect would increase over the next few years. But still, and there's a lot of information I have here from Metals Focus World Silver Survey from the Silver Institute. But please feel free to download the entire report. Or you can download any year the report on the website of the Silver Institute. These are just the largest silver producing mines in the world. And what I found really interesting is that just even over 2 years, most of them actually see declining production. So again, feeding into that even pre-COVID theme of decreasing silver production. And if you do the same and you look at the biggest silver producing countries, you will see a very similar number decrease in many of the countries. And of course, there are some smaller producers there, but decrease in Mexico and Peru already from 2018 to 19, which will be very, very important if that continues to the silver production. I just thought I want to include one slide, and it's maybe a little bit out here with the timing, but I wanted to talk about metallurgical advances because that's really what moved the silver production ahead. Are these step changes that you see there when new metallurgical advances happen? Going first smelting, cupellation, and mercury amalgamation, which allowed to produce much more silver. So the patio process for faster recoveries. You see there the pan amalgamation, silver recovery in 20 hours instead of weeks. Of course, that changed everything. Cyanidation, and all the way to flotation, which as a lot of silver comes with base metals. Of course, increased the silver production substantially in the world, all the way to heap leach, like Pan American. We own the Dolores mine in Mexico, which is a silver gold heap leach. So big changes in metallurgical advances, and we need more. We need to see more advances here in the future, I think, to improve silver production in the world. And as I see, most of this process are actually quite old. And that really brings me to my last slide. I hope I gave you some ideas what silver did, how important it was to actually help the rise of some really important cultures in the world. What do we need to do here in the future? Well, we need to find more deposits. Exploration is harder and harder, not only for silver, because our outcropping deposits, I think, have been mostly found, and we have to go deeper down. So we need to find more and cheaper methodologies to mine underground silver, to be able to do bulk mineable ore bodies at lower costs. There are a few very large bulk mineable deposits still in the world. They're known. One of it is in our portfolio in Panam with Navidad in Argentina, very interesting deposit that is actually outcropping. Metallurgy, I talked about metallurgy, and there's a lot of silver which is refractory right now that will be available in the future if you actually find a better way to mine and recover silver from silver-rich pyrites, jarosites, etc. So very large deposits that are already known but can't be recovered. And I think on the heap leach side, although silver recovers and leaches very, very slowly, very interesting processes there that could come. On top of that, as I said, declining silver production, we see strong increase in demand, especially on the industrial side. I think once the COVID recovery will be clear here, there will be much more demand. Electrification of the world, silver is used in all electronics, clean energy production, drinking water purification, etc., etc. So there's a lot of, hundreds and thousands of applications that silver is used in the world, and they're really, the future applications or green applications, really things that help us to get to a low carbon future where silver is absolutely needed. So there will be a lot of demand, and as we see over the last week, there will be always a lot of demand on the monetary side as well. Silver has been money and store of value for over 4,000 years. That won't change. And sure, we see some dry spells like the last few years where silver was lagging. The silver gold ratio went all the way to 125. But at the end, it's still fulfilling its store of value. And moves very quickly, as we saw last week when it starts moving. So I would fully expect that to continue in the current situation with COVID and less silver production and devaluation of major currencies that we're probably going to see here over the next few years. So with that, Andrew, I pass it back on to you, and thank you very much to give me the chance to present today.
Michael, thank you very much for giving us the lead off and the introduction to silver and its importance from a financial perspective over the last 4,000 years. It really is something that is forgotten, and hopefully this modern world that we're living in is going to reintroduce silver to many investors and the utility of it from a monetary standpoint. Thank you again. Look, we don't have time for questions, but I know that Michael is always available to speak with. So again, thank you, Michael. Thank you very much for taking the time to present to us today.
No problem. Thank you very much.